will be on adaptive UI. So this is actually part of the research I am doing for my PhD. But I don't, since my time is limited, I have very 30-minute limited time slot. But I have selected a certain part which I thought will be valuable for commercial software developers. So I took that part in this presentation. Yeah. If you just search the term responsive UI and the adaptive UI, this is what you get. The responsive UI, there you talk about one layout managing across different device sizes. That's the basic idea is you have one template, but you manage it to fit different device sizes by changing the grid layout. But if you take adaptive UI, there you talk about having different templates for different devices. And when you switch between devices, you load the optimal template for the device. This is what you get on the term adaptive UI. But my talk is little bit away from this discussion. If you take this adaptive parameter, the device size, it's just a one parameter in the today's environment context. So I thought of restarting the discussion with this Darwin's theory. In the Darwin's theory, there you say it's not the strongest species or not the strongest intelligent person that will go forward. It's the most adaptive person or the adaptive species that will survive in the long run. And the essence of this theory is the evaluation is equal the variation plus the natural selection. For example, if I take human, for example, this theory can be applicable for many places. If you take human race, for example, we among us, we have different varieties. We have strong people, we have weak people, we have intelligent people, but the people who go for the next generation is the people who survive with these different competitions, extreme conditions. If you become a software engineer, for example, the best software engineers won't survive in the long run. It's not the intelligent people, but the people who can build good software, build good technologies, they will survive in the long run. So how does this concept valid for the software industry? That's what matters, right? So the theory says the variation plus selection, it defines the retention. If you take few decades back, we talk about this mainframe era or the monolithic era. There you had the one variation and you have a one selection. Say for example, if people reject the system, what will happen? So your entire software product will be out of the market. Because it's so monolithic, you don't have different pieces as such, right? But later, what happened? When people start rejecting, when people start using different devices, the format of the software, the structure of the software system, you start changing it. You start developing products for mobile, products for web. Then the variations start kicking in. You had several variations and people selected, the natural selection was what is most convenient or what is most adaptive for the demand for that day, right? So if you take further it down, today it's microservices. You talk about splitting the pieces of the software into micro pieces, and some of the pieces will survive, some of the features will survive, some of the services will survive, but not all will survive, right? The essence here is when you increase the variation and if you let end users or the engineers to select it, then at least the selections, good selections will promote to the next generation and the bad things will go out from the market. And that is what is happening. But the problem is so far we have done this using engineering concepts. So the selection is done on the engineering factory. But today what's happening is the selection is done from the users, right? So you need to have an infrastructure or there's technology pieces that will let users to do good selections, and you should provide dynamic variations. Then if you rotate this concept for a longer periods, you don't have a concept called redesigning or rewriting. It's adaptive. So the new pieces will come and go, the bad pieces will lose. So it's same as how species are matured, how we have raised our generations. So we need to replicate the same principles on the software products itself. So that is this exercise is about. So now its era of evolution is variation plus end user selection. Previously, its evolution is variation by engineers, by selection from the engineers. We said that this is web market, this is mobile market, this is microservices market, right? But it is not the real case. End user, they have to select. We just have to do whatever technology platforms to facilitate this, right? So I took a simple use case because concept is a bit advanced, but I took a simple use case so everyone can understand the concept. So the use case is from tourism industry, and in tourism you have different type of tourists. Some they are business travelers. Some they look for budget travel. They look for prices, discounts, and some people are they are just explorers. So they want to see nice places, entertainment. So a lot of things happen. So I have in this my application, I have 5 features: search locations, book hotels, book flights, discounts, popular places. So depending on these different characters in tourism industries, for them application should differ, right? If you put all these 5 features into one product, it's a monolithic application. So when a budget traveler log into this application, he will see all these 5 features. And the regular traveler, he also see all these 5 features, right? But which is disturbing, right? It relates to what Venkat talked in the morning. So we need to make simpler their interfaces on the long run. When you realize, okay, this is a budget traveler, this guy is a explorer. So you need to build different type of applications based on the user type. You cannot do this by setting business rules behind the software product. Then it becomes static. So what you have to do is you need to follow a machine learning approach to build this type of adaptive interfaces. So this is the 3 type of travelers I explained: the traveler, explorer, and the budgeter. So, and as I said, if the product is monolithic, everyone will see the same application. So it's still abstract. I will just show you how it works on the product. But these different squares, they will reflect different features. Really what need to happen is the budgeter should see his own options. Here he sees only 3 options. When the explorer, he sees only 2 features. And the traveler, he sees only 2 features. This is what needed. These are the micro variations, the micro pieces that I talk. Then the user will select what is the micro pieces I want, right? So the first step in doing this process, the monolithic application, you have to break it down into pieces. Basically the features, activities, behaviors of these different users, you have to mine it, right? So in this concept, this is a concept. The application is a function of features, user activities, user behaviors, and the layout, and maybe the device type. If a person will see different application from different devices, then this device type also will become a parameter. So yeah, I will go to the demo. Okay, so At the heart of the application, the first step, now you have micro pieces, right? You have to have an engine which accept these different configurations. I said the application is a function of those different parameters. So these parameters become a configuration. So for this engine, when you submit these different parameters, this engine should be able to generate the application. It's not like a static application. So by reading this configuration, this engine should be able to generate a it's a dynamic application. So I will show the configuration, example configuration. So if you look at, this is simple JSON object. So this JSON object will define the layout of the complex application. That means an application which has all the features, right? So this application has 2 rows. This is the layout, and inside these 2 rows, in first column, you have 3 features. I mentioned about 5 features altogether, right? So in the second row, you have 2 more features, and each feature, it has definition for the features, and if you have parameters and user behaviors, you can add into this dynamic objects, right? So when you have a configuration, this engine can generate an application. So when a fresh user comes to this application for the first time, fresh user comes for this application first time, he will see all 5 features. He will see all 5 features. And depending on the user type, he will pick different features for his usage. Maybe a budget user will only focus on this area, and maybe booking flights, things like that. A regular traveler, he will just come here and search, he will say the location, he will book a flight and he will travel. And an explorer, he will start searching and find popular places, so his features are different, right? So that is the user behavior. So what we have done is, from all these features, when user act on these features, we will send this analytics, the user behaviors, into an analytics server. I can show it in a simple interface. If I just inspect this on the console, so you can see when I click on these different interfaces, it sends the analytics data on which component you have clicked, which operation you have performed. So this is collecting analytics and send it to a hosted analytics server, right? So we have an analytics server here. This is called Pivik. This is locally hosted. I have hosted this on Amazon, but this can be used as a local analytics server. So you don't have to send this to the Google Analytics. This is similar to Google Analytics, but you can have it on your own infrastructure. So when this collect this data, so this is my demo user. If you can, I can increase size a bit. So you can see this demo user. This is the user that I have created for this demo purpose. You can see this has collected, sorry, screen resolution is small, but you can see all the configuration about the user's behavior. Now this has collected by this analytics server. Now this is kind of machine learning process. So now if I just go here and ask a question, from this URL, I can query. So I have pre-ran this exercise, so you don't, that's why you see the value 3. So I have created in the server 3 different categories of users. by running a learning process. I will come to back how I do it. Now when I make the request on the URL, you can see I am sending get profile and I pass my user ID. So it will say, okay, you are a budget user or you are an explorer. Because this machine learning instance running on the background, he knows what is the characteristic of a budget user, what is the characteristic of a explorer. So that has done using training machine learning data, right? So now when you get this type of the user, you can dynamically generate. So basically now you know the layout, what are the features he used, and his behaviors. So now you can dynamically generate application customized to a budget or a explorer, right? So if I now log out, if I now just log out, now this has 5 features. Now if I log in again as a demo user, so now what will happen is it will only show, let's see whether it's a connectivity issue. Yeah, it will show only the features for a budget user. Now you don't see all 5 features because now it has generated the UI for the type of the user. So this is adaptive, right? So how do I develop this? I can further drill into the history. This is a dashboard I have created by this Piwik has its own API. So I can query and get this data from this Piwik. So now you can see in this graph the behaviors and the usage of these individual users, and you can see this discounts. This represents discounts. Discount has a large portion for this user, and he has used very less on other features, right? So now we can, like, based on this percentage, then the probabilities of their usage, you can dynamically say, okay, this user only need this feature, right? Okay, or else you can have control parameters and say, okay, I can tweak what features goes to these different users, right? So and also if you further go into this real-time prediction view, I can select user from here, and when I select the feature from here, so it has also generated a sample view. This is a sample view for administration. This is the prediction. He's a budgeter, and these are the available features. So we can have kind of an analytic interface, admin interface on the back end. You can track exactly what features should go into what users, right? So I will explain the technology behind this. So you have only seen the application so far. So I will explain. We have hosted this the monolithic application with all the features in a Amazon EC2 instance. So in the first run, we have created 3 different supervisors. We call this supervised training. So basically the characteristics of each different type we have to know in advance. So we know what budgeter, what explorer, and what traveler does using this application. So they connect into this monolithic, the complete feature set, and they will exactly do what budgeter will do for a longer period of time. So it will collect a lot of data about the character. And so we have 3 characters configured to this feature application, and these user behaviors are hosted into this. This is Piwik, this one. So this is an analytic server. So it send all the information to this PVIC server, and it collects the training data. And also we have a machine learning API running on Amazon. This is a node service which pull this information. Right now this is a pull approach, but later this will be a real-time service. But for the time being, we were not able to make it real-time. But this will periodically fetch this data, and it will create here you create 3 different data learning models inside Amazon machine learner instance. So these 3 models will differently reflect these 3 different users, right? So this cycle from here to here, that is the learning cycle. So I have trained what really these 3 characters are, and it has the model for these user behaviors has stored in this Amazon machine learner. So when the next time user comes here, so this is a regular user. So and system knows what the different type of characters are available in the system. So when this user, say this regular user, only use these 2 features, and it will send his data, usage data into this PVIC, and it also update this machine learning instance. And now it will ask the question, what is my type? And the system knows he only used these 2 features. And he will immediately query against this machine learning instance. It provides a query endpoint from the machine learning. He's asking, what is my type, right? So it will say, you are a budgeter. At this point, you are a budgeter. So it will return that he's a budgeter, and we will render the budgeter interface, right? Say after some time, this user start using other features, and he start earning more money, and he start thinking, oh, okay, I am a full-fledged traveler, and he start using other features. So ultimately, these additional features start seeing on his interface, because this system will come to know, okay, now this becoming advanced, is becoming adaptive, right? So he will, based on his usage and based on his demands, the shape of the application get changed, right? This is same as how species change, right? When they become advanced, they start doing advanced things. And also, same time, if certain features are not valid, no longer used, then the system knows, okay, now it's time to discard these features, because it's pointless to run these extra features which are not used, because it's money again. Like just hosting these features means you have APIs running on web servers, and you have web applications running. So you have a lot of waste on unused features. So you can let them to sleep, or you can make them archive, and if later someone demands, you can wake up it from the these archive storages, and you can make them available back, right? So, right. So I think I went little fast, but I have 5 more minutes. I can take questions like. If you have any questions, and I can explain a bit about this dynamic generation also. So now, if you look at how these user interfaces, the web applications are developed, you can basically say a div is a feature. Your entire application, you can say div is a feature. So you can on and off small pieces on UI. So you can actually create really dynamic applications by using these adaptive interfaces. So it's a matter of how you break down these monolithic systems. Maybe sometimes it's like you break down these features as components. You say, okay, search component will be a feature, right? But even you have the option of creating more complex hierarchies. Inside search component, you can have further drill downs and say, okay, the search component for user, budget user will be different from search component for a regular user, right? So it's matter of how you break down these features and how you identify how should it evolve, right? So if you repeat this process, like someone could ask, by doing this what we are gaining, like though this concept is on UI, actually you can do this same concept to the middleware. If you take the Amazon infrastructure, now you have option of running these lambdas. These are micro functions. You can say run this function on the server and you disconnect, right? So you can execute middleware functions on demand. So if features for my features, so I don't have to pay because it's hosted on a web server, but I can say, okay, run this and you shut down, right? So by doing this in the businesses, you can reduce a lot of cost and you can do a lot of optimizations. So it's not only about presenting the feature in different forms, but it's all, on the long run, it's about making your applications lean and reducing cost associated with this hosting unwanted features, unwanted services, and maybe on the data layer also you can do a lot of optimizations. Things are no longer used. You can have different layers, like frequently used layers you can have on closer servers or the caching servers. The less frequent features you can have on the archive storages. So this Amazon have different type of storages which are fast, which are slow, which are archive. So you can have all these kind of different architectural choices based on this what you call the architecture or the concept. But concept is still at a very premature stage, but I think this concept has a long run. If you look at companies like Facebook, you will never see the same UI for two different users because it's always adaptive. The concepts are there with these large software vendors, but the problem is for majority of software systems, it's not commercially available. So you can't use Facebook adaptive learning system for our applications. So you have to have a commodity system which can be available for all the developers, right? That is the whole idea behind this, right? So to how we can make available this kind of adaptive systems for majority. Because this is not magic. I mean, if you look at Facebook, this is happening. But only thing is this is not available for the commercial software development. So we need to drive this, and you have all the tools needed, and even these things like Kinesis. What I described is just a slow moving. It's like a batch processing system. But if things are happening really fast, complex event processing, if you want to see the changes very dynamically, then you have the option of plugging this stream processing, complex event processing engines into this. Then you will see instantly. If I do change here, your system will be changed real time, right? So this is more batch. I always make a refresh to see the changes, but that part can be fixed using these technologies. So I will just wind up, but I will be available here like until the next session. So if you are interested in, like, this is research project, we are looking for a lot of people to engage. So this will be an open source project. So people can engage. This is not a commercial project yet, but if you are interested, you can talk and you can write to me. Yeah, thank you.